we have covered almost 600 kilometers, traveling from Madrid across southern Spain. This brings us to Granada, a historic place at the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Here, I visit the oldest active military airport in Spain, where I witnessed some astonishing flying. The last part of our journey, fittingly enough, also brings us to the last stronghold of the Moors in Andalusia before relinquishing the land to the Christian monarchs. In their retreat, they leave behind a grand palace and citadel, rising above the highest point of the city. Nowhere else is the splendor of this advanced civilization captured better than in the last Islamic palace complex in the world, the Alhambra. From Cordoba, we continued driving south to reach the province of Granada. The drive allowed me not just to savor the sights, but also to get to know the Porsche Cayenne Turbo more closely. When you're inside this car, it really feels like a sports car. Take a look, we're the only SUV with a lap timer. Car has 8 gears and you can either do it on a full automatic or use your paddle shifters. If you want to feel like you want to use engine brakes or shift to a lower gear outright. Let me overtake this truck. So one flick, it goes 1 gear down and it goes back to automatic. So here in the panel, you have this ball like a mouse. You can switch around, check your tire pressure, and you can check your G-force. When we get a chance to speed up, I'll let you take a look at this G-force, whether it's sideways or frontways or backwards. So watch it as we take this turn and listen to the turbocharger. And you also feel the G-force come up. Feeling energized by the burst of power, I darted through traffic as the speed limit permits, climbing up the hilly terrain until I reached some white peaks. And that over there is the Sierra Nevada mountains. Sierra Nevada translates to Mountain of Snow and is Spain's highest elevation. Its high altitude allows it to be blanketed in snow most of the year, making skiing possible even in this Mediterranean country. Just below the snow-capped peaks is my first stop, Armilla Air Base, Spain's oldest active military airport. I was met by Captain Juan Guillermo de Sousa of the 78th Wing of the Spanish Air Force, who took me around the base.
This is, of course, as I told you before, a historical airbase. In 1922 was amongst the first air bases in the Spanish Air Force. In the 50s, it was employed in training pilots and aviators. In the 60s, it's an important milestone because the helicopter school was first based in Madrid, in Cuatro Vientos airfield. And in the 1980s, it came here to Armilla.
Armilla Air Base is now home to a helicopter training school and the Patrulla ASPA, the Spanish Air Force Helicopter Aerobatic Team. With their ideal location, the team also trains pilots of the Guardia Civil, as well as pilots for mountain search and rescue and firefighting. They have have been sent on medevac missions as far as Bosnia and Afghanistan, and have also responded to rescue missions during calamities in Spain. Their highly trained mechanics maintain the aircraft in their hangars. The Patrulla uses the Eurocopter EC-120 Colibri, a single-engine, light utility helicopter designed for safe and efficient missions. Its wide and spacious cabin is ideal for medevac and transport operations.
So this one worked very well for everybody, huh?
The thing is that, yeah, you can see maybe a paper helicopter, but it's not
New technology.
Yes, the construction techniques, the structure, everything. You may think that the structure suffers a lot
Yes.
of the tail boom, but you don't see any crack, you don't see any problems. You see sometimes this is painting problem, but the helicopter is really, really good and has very hard treatment from the students.
Yeah.
Hard landings, hard everything. Soft nothing, hard everything. Yes, and you see the blades, the composite blade with the abrasion strips.
But looks neat and no delaminations or anything.
No, it's really good. Yep.
Well, I think we also should congratulate the mechanics for keeping it well.
Yes, we are very proud of having them, and they love their jobs.
Captain De Souza then takes me to the airfield where I will witness the Patrulla Aspa's skilled flying.
We're lucky today because we will get the chance to see these guys practice and rehearse for their aerobatic display.
Each helicopter will be flown by 2 pilots, and they will be doing several different maneuvers. After air taxiing, they go into their takeoff positions.
It's amazing. Of course, the helicopters are always nicer than close visual contact with the audience compared to the fixed wing.
That's one of the points of the ASPA team.
What does ASPA mean? How does you?
ASPA,
Yes.
it means the blade of a helicopter. But the thing is, as you know, Don Quixote de la Mancha sounds to you
We went there. We visited his hometown.
that the Don Quixote battled windmills.
Yes, that's right.
We call the helicopter also windmills. So a blade of a windmill is an aspa.
I see. Okay.
You know,
That sounds logical.
in fact, there's a maneuver here that is called Quixote in honor of that.
So they change position while flying and doing the approach. This one is called the Break Alhambra. Nice.
This was followed by the Generalife crossing.
Here they come.
Here is an impressive solo.
So dive and then twist. Okay.
And another solo showing both pilot skill and aircraft handling.
A lot of rudder work.
It depends a lot on the wind and the side. This side is the good one because you don't have to use a lot of torque.
Yeah.
But yes, he's using now maybe 70-80% of the rudder. But it's, as you see, it's very maneuverable.
Then, the Don Quixote maneuver, where a solo helicopter comes from below and goes against the other 4, which represent the 4 blades of a windmill.
This is one of my favorites too. It's only 3 helicopters.
Look how close.
So it's another, they're going to crash, but you know, it's all optic illusions. This is the Tornado.
Yes. this is?
I think it's Serranito.
Yeah, okay.
And finally, the Rotura España, or Spain brake.
Wow, okay. Very nice.
What a fantastic display by the Patrulla Aspa. One by one, they took a well-deserved bow.
Do you want to say anything to the pilots?
Congratulations, very nice show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I was able to meet Comandante Fernando Perez, the jefe of the Patrulla, to personally invite his team to perform in the Philippines.
If you invite us to your country, we'll be very glad to
Great, great.
Yeah.
So everybody enjoy.
Volunteer.
What a great first day spent in Granada, hosted by no less than the Spanish Air Force. I can't wait to see more of this beautiful city. Up next, I behold the wonders of the Alhambra, a marvel of the medieval world, filled with the sophisticated and the complex, the ornate and the enchanting. I continue to explore Granada at the foot of the Sierra Nevada mountains. By the year 1238, the Al-Andalus Empire has lost large areas of its territories to Christian forces, leaving only a small part of the kingdom in the south. Granada then was a Jewish and Muslim settlement. Seeking refuge in the city, an ambitious young sultan, Muhammad Ibn Nasser, retreated to an abandoned fortress on top of the hill. Here, he established the longest reigning dynasty in Granada, the Nasrids.
Granada was the last stronghold of the Spanish Moors, and their legacy can be seen all over the city. The most impressive pinnacle of this influence is the Alhambra.
Alhambra means the red one, named after the red rock used to construct the fortress and palace. Perched in a strategic location above the plains, its imposing tower and walls were a military statement. The Nasrids would be the last Muslim dynasty in the Iberian Peninsula. But they left behind this grand palatial complex whose achievements in architectural design and engineering can be appreciated up to this day. Inside is a self-sufficient mini-city, mosques, gardens, and a network of palaces. Over a period of 200 years, Ibn Nasser's descendants continued to make additions to the citadel. For a city to thrive on top of this plateau, fresh water is important. The Alhambra was way ahead of its time, building a complex system to get water from the river Darro below to feed the palace's numerous fountains and pools, and to irrigate its gardens. Aside from its engineering marvels, its different palaces reflect the best examples of Islamic design and architecture. Because of their shrinking empire, the Nasrid emperors knew that their power is not in military strength, but in diplomacy and politics. Thus, every room in the Alhambra is designed to impress and intimidate.
The Hall of the Ambassadors is the throne room of the king. The walls are covered and decorated with holy texts.
Visiting ambassadors of other kingdoms were stunned by the richly decorated room. Above are latticed windows, and overhead, a ceiling made of 8,000 pieces of cedar wood, representing the heavens. And commanding the space below is the Sultan, seated in the middle with windows showing his kingdom behind him. Facing the throne room is the court of the myrtles, where a pool runs parallel to myrtle shrubs, reflecting the structures behind it. The mirror image in the water is said to be a reminder of the impermanence of life. Through a corridor, we get to the most stunning courtyards in the Alhambra, the Court of the Lions. Intricately decorated slender columns support the covered patio, which are said to represent the palm trees of an oasis. The fountain in the middle is a basin carried by 12 lions spouting water, with channels pointing in 4 directions. The Court of the Lions represent the highest point of Nashrid architecture. Refined, complex, and luxurious. Walking around, you will be amazed at all the details carefully put into each wall and column. Islamic art does not like empty spaces. Every surface is decorated. Arched windows allow the light to come in and offered views of the gardens. All throughout the Alhambra, you will find this honeycomb design incorporated in each room. This technique called mokarabes is uniquely Islamic. Its honeycomb structure forms a kind of stalactite hanging over the arches and ceilings. It was originally painted in bright colors of blue, ochre, and gold. This unique fractal shape, when repeated, forms a dazzling spectacle combining mathematics, architecture, and art, reflecting the Islamic belief in God's complex creation of the universe. Some later additions can be seen, like these paintings depicting Muslim kings and medieval scenes. The colors are still very bright and well preserved, although these are likely painted by Christians, as Muslim art does not usually depict living beings. When the royals tire of their court life, they retreat to the gardens of the Generalife, a short walk from the palace complex. Gardens are very important in Islam, a religion whose origins sprung from the desert. The idea of paradise is a lush garden, filled with fruit trees and flowering plants, where cool water runs to purify and nourish. Visiting the Alhambra takes you back to another time and another world, where the pursuit of knowledge, power, and beauty is the order of the day. Up next, I explore the winding streets of the Albayzin, discover Granada's Christian heritage, and find a Christmas culture not far from our own. Alhambra, rising from the plains to meet the Sierra Nevada mountains, is a sight to behold. While the sultans lived within its walls, their subjects occupied this neighborhood of whitewashed houses overlooking the palace. The practice of whitewashing houses in alkaline is said to have been introduced during the plague as a means of disinfecting buildings. The result is a sea of white buildings perched on hilltops scattered all over Andalusia.
The Albayzin, or the Arab quarters, is the oldest part of Granada, where you can see old tea houses, horseshoe arches, and traditional Moorish houses called carmenes.
It follows the typical Moorish Medina layout, with narrow, maze-like streets to prevent invasions. The architecture of these houses derives a lot from the native land of the Moorish Berbers who settled here, making them very similar to the ones in Morocco. Painting the walls in white also helped cool them in the heat of the Granada sun. At the height of the Nashrid rule, the Albayzin had some 40,000 residents and over 30 mosques. Walking the Albayzin's winding streets, I am led to the San Nicolas Mirador, a little plaza that serves as a good place to mingle with the locals. And an amazing viewpoint to behold the glory of the Alhambra. As I continue to walk around, I find local taverns and taperias which offer the best of southern Spanish cuisine. Spices continue to be sold in the streets and used in many delectable Andalusian dishes. In the midst of the bustle stands the towering facade of the Granada Cathedral.
This cathedral was built on top of Granada's Grand Mosque after the Catholic monarchs captured the city.
Queen Isabella of Castile and King Ferdinand of Aragon united their kingdoms and created a formidable force that toppled the Al-Andalus Empire. By 1492, Granada had fallen to Christian forces. It was the last Muslim city in all of Iberia to bow down to the Catholic monarchs. Construction on the church began a few years after the city's reconquest. Inside, you will be dwarfed by the grandiosity and opulence of the cathedral. Placed prominently in the middle of the city, one can see how important it was for the Catholic Church to assert its dominance in this land they have conquered and to show its power to the city's subjects. The cathedral was built over the span of 2 centuries by several architects with a mix of Baroque and Renaissance styles. As the royal couple's power grew, an important figure in world exploration would find his way to Granada: Christopher Columbus. The Italian explorer sought funding from Queen Isabella, who supported his voyage. This resulted in his claiming of the Americas for the Spanish crown. Thus began Spain's golden age of exploration. With the conquest of Granada being an important event in the reign of Isabella and Ferdinand, they chose to be buried here in the royal chapel close to the cathedral. Their successors continued to exercise their influence on the city, as their grandson, Charles V, set his eyes on the Alhambra.
After the Reconquest, King Carlos V built a Renaissance palace right in the middle of the Alhambra grounds.
Charles V admired the Nashrid palaces so much that he built this gigantic square building with a circular courtyard to become his permanent residence in the Alhambra. It was also meant to be the statement of power, a solid building in contrast with the intricate Moorish palaces. Due to some rebellions, the building was never finished and work was eventually abandoned. Today, it houses the Alhambra Museum. As evening falls in Granada, I find myself drawn to the Plaza de Bibrambla, where the locals have gathered. It is the same square of the old Medina in Nashrid times, bearing witness to Muslim souks, medieval jousts, bullfights, executions, and celebrations throughout the centuries. Today, a Christmas market is taking place, where there are displays of the traditional Belen, miniature scenes of the Nativity, very much similar at home.
Christmas in Spain is just like at home. It extends up to January for the Feast Day of the Three Kings.
The holiday atmosphere has certainly taken over this ancient city, still thriving after its long and storied past. Andalusia is a unique place shaped by the rich cultures that have called it home. It resulted in the most sophisticated civilization in the Middle Ages. And its spirit and passion lives on in every city of this enchanted land.
This has been your captain, Joy Roa. See you in the next Asian Air Safari.